Hi, I'm Laura Mullen, co-founder of Bent Paddle Brewing Company in Duluth, Minnesota. Here at Bent Paddle, we make quality craft beer and hemp cannabis beverages from the clean water of Lake Superior. On your way up to the BWCA, be sure to check out our Lincoln Park Craft District tap room to get a stainless steel or growler to go, or find Bent Paddle at restaurants, bars, and liquor stores throughout Minnesota. Let Bent Paddle be the bridge that lets good memories and conversation flow while you're reflecting on the perfect campsite or the splendidness of the Northern Lights. For more info, visit bentpaddlebrewing.com or check us out on Facebook or Instagram. Cheers!
Take 3, LB.
Welcome to episode 16 of the Paddle and Portage podcast. We have an extra special episode today, joined by Canadian resident who crossed the border to share this story with us, Erin Walker, who is an accomplished paddler and writer and contributor to the work that we do.
Erin and her husband Jon work on the Lost Lakes YouTube channel that they founded and share amazing adventures all over Canada. And they have an episode on the channel coming out later in the month, but Erin wrote an article for Paddle and Portage and joins us on the podcast today to talk about their trip to Nunavut, a really remote part of Canada by all standards, even Canadian standards. And their experience is unbelievable. And we're so grateful to spend time with Erin and hear about this on the podcast and on the website and the magazine. It was so great to spend time with Erin, too, down by Lake Superior. Erin has already written an article for Paddle and Portage about a paddling trip she did this summer with her dad and sister on Lake Superior, as well as some other content just about the life of being a YouTuber who goes paddling. So today we're going to kind of combine all of that into this incredible trip that Jon and Erin took up into the Barrens of Nunavut.
It was for our honeymoon, actually. We were kind of like, let's do something bigger. We kind of started talking about kind of the territories, going a bit further north. Both of us have always wanted to do that. We ended up choosing New Alton Lake because we're both quite big fans of Farley Mowat and his work. He spent a lot of time in that area, and his book, No Man's River, is about his first trip into Nunavut, and he goes and spends time in New Alton. So New Alton Lake is very, like, lots of bays and isles and kind of winding, lots of islands. So when it comes to distance and shoreline, well, we did 450 kilometers of shoreline, and we didn't cover the whole lake. We left out a couple huge sections. The southern end we didn't get to, and then a couple really large bays we didn't have time for. It was a big lake, no portages. Felt like it was a good intro into kind of going and spending several weeks in the Barrens, subarctic. It goes from tree line into Barrens there, so we got to do the transition, which was pretty cool. Subarctic tundra, so pretty much it goes, there's the like tree line boreal forest, so we got dropped off just on the edge of that, where there's still some trees. They're pretty stunted, like 5-6 feet tall, stunted, and then in through, it's called like taiga. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's another kind of landscape where, again, the stunted trees, smaller shrubs, things like that, and then through that into the Barrens, where most of the trees disappear, and then you get primarily just kind of lichens and grass and lots of eskers, lots of boulders, erratics, kind of remnants from the last ice age. It's quite a large lake, and it's an interesting, where we were dropped off, we ended up getting dropped off just kind of right at the border of Manitoba and Nunavut, and we're heading north. And there's, the first couple of days we were in a bit of a narrows, so it wasn't the same, because again, we paddle on Lake Superior, we paddled around Lake Nipigon, big lakes we're familiar with, and there's always that kind of daunting feeling of the big lakes and wanting to be safe, and is it going to let you paddle? It was narrows, and there's lots of islands, and it didn't feel like that huge lake. It wasn't as intimidating. And then day 2 we got stuck with 40-kilometer-an-hour winds and just intense rain. It's not like we haven't experienced that before, but being stuck the second day of such a long trip in such an unknown space. Are we going to make it the whole time? As we were hoping to get to the northernmost part of the lake. It was a bit daunting there. We'd camped just on top of an esker, and so like very exposed. There's nowhere really to hide from that. But then after that, we woke up and lots of headwinds, but they were manageable. But the whole landscape, everything was so new. It was so otherworldly that even without seeing wildlife, we just had our jaws on the floor. Like the whole time was so surreal.
For the first time, and you can blame them or thank them, but we will be talking about the winter and the holiday season for the first time in 2024. You can thank Tuscarora Lodge and Canoe Outfitters located on Round Lake for that. Tuscarora is a full-service Boundary Waters outfitter serving the Gunflint Trail entry points, and they are now booking holiday and winter cabin stays. Check them out at TuscaroraCanoe.com. or find them on their robust social media pages and YouTube channel at Tuscarora Canoe. We mentioned on the last episode of the podcast that we're opening this new office for Paddle and Portage in Ely, expanding. So we're going to have the office now in Grand Marais that we've had all year, and now we also have an office in Ely. We're very, very excited about that. And when we were over in Ely, just this month in October, we noticed a number of canoes for sale out in front of Ely Outfitting Company, right there on the main drag in Ely. You can find all of the canoes that they have, Kevlar canoes, for sale right now from Ely Outfitting Company. Just follow the link that we have in this episode of the podcast, either at paddleandportage.com or wherever you're listening to the podcast. You should be able to link directly to Ely Outfitting Company and specifically to their current list of used canoes that they have for sale. These are Northwind Solos. They got the Northwind 17, 18, 20s, those B19 models. They also have Winona and Grey Duck lightweight canoes for sale as well. So a really tremendous sale going on from Ely Outfitting Company. Looking at some of the prices, like they're around the $1,500 range, just slightly above that for some of the canoes, and it lists the condition that they're in as well. So check that out, Ely Outfitting Company. Find it on their website and in the link from here on the podcast.
The morning after we were stuck, so I guess day 3, like after we'd been pinned down and we're feeling a bit like, do we know what we're doing? In the narrowest part of the lake, we turned a corner and you see the flash of paddles in the distance, right? Like that's usually the first thing you'll see. And I was like, I'm not well. Is that people? And we were like, I think that's people. So we paddled up and it was this couple. They said this is about their 40th year in the Barrens. Their first trip was for their honeymoon. They were from Maine. They'd been out there 3 weeks already. They seemed so happy and content. They put us at ease because they were so lovely and just they shared some information and we're like, oh yeah, here's kind of our experience. They told us about a great site, which we ended up camping at that night. Just this calming presence that's like, oh, you're good, kid. It was right when we needed it in the trip. And John and I were like, I think that was us. It literally felt like meeting us in 40 years. It was so bizarre. It was surreal. They had the same boat as us. They had their paddles were from Bending Branches, which is where ours are from. Same bug jacket. It was bizarre, but in the best way. And that was only people what we saw on the whole trip. And it was almost at times, it was like, did that happen? Did we envision that because it's what we needed at that point in time? I don't know. And the odds of seeing, again, the lake's huge, right? So if you think of lakes, it's not Lake Superior size, but like Nipigon or other large lakes, the odds of us both being out there at the same time, but then running into each other is really, really slim. And to be it was literally the narrowest part of the lake that we just crossed paths on that day. So, but that was it. Other than that, the only other person we saw was our pilot when he picked us up and dropped us off. Very remote. Day 3 was where we exited the narrows and entered the large portion of the lake. Is hard to comprehend, right? It feels like an ocean. And you're like, how is there just water? As far as you can see, we're looking out and we can't see the other side of the lake. And it's really beautiful. And there's we didn't do a ton of fishing, but they've got huge lake trout in the waters. John caught one I don't know, it's probably 12 or 13 pounds, which apparently for up there is like they get up to 50. So it wasn't even considered that big, but for us it was. So, and then we caught lots of huge pike too, pretty, almost every time you throw a line in, really large pikes. So, and Arctic grayling, that was the first time we've seen those. And so they're really cool fish with a quite large dorsal fin. And so you can see when they're feeding, they're kind of easy to target because their fins come and surface as they feed. So it's easy to know where to cast.
This is Mark Savoy with Solbakken on Superior. Solbakken has 6 motel rooms and 6 charming cabins located on the shores of Lake Superior. The motel rooms are the perfect place to stop over either on your way in or your way out of the Boundary Waters canoe area. Visit our website at Solbakken on Superior to make your reservations today.
In the first 10 days, it was incredible. We didn't see any mammals. And we didn't even see that many birds, like even just songbirds, other things are here and there. But for the most part, it was really just not a lot of life. Kind of like the prairies, you can see for miles. We did a couple just hikes. It's so much easier to hike when there's no thick bushes and trees. And we'd just walk up, these ridges and you don't have to go that far, that high to be able to see for just out to the horizon. So that was, all of that was just such an experience. So it was, it was just kind of the day-to-day paddling, kind of the norm, but felt like in a different world. No signs of active life, but then lots of signs of the migrations in the past, which was really cool. We were starting, it's the first time I've ever found an antler shed of any kind, which is something I've always wanted to do. I think it was the 3rd day I found my first caribou antler and was so excited. The other main focus for us early in the trip was getting to the point where Farley Mowat had stayed, and it was deep into a bay that was about 40 kilometers in, and again, if we got the wrong winds, it will just whip right up there. So we really wanted to get there and see if we can find the remains of the cabin. Also there was there's some wolf dens that have been there for generations, and peregrine falcons nests, all kind of in this one area. So that first, after day 3 where we left the Narrows, had met Brad and Patty, that was kind of our mindset of like, we wanted to get to the end of Smith Bay and see that. And so that was kind of a piece of the trip as well that was really cool. And we saw that and we found those remnants, and we were able to see the hills where the dens were. We didn't see any of the wolf or anything, but just knowing they were there, again, Farley Mowat writes about them and that in a couple of his books. That surrealness was a big part of that kind of arc in the first part of the trip for sure. And then the rest, unfolded as the caribou started rolling in. I think it was day 11 we started seeing tracks on the beach, and that's the first time we'd seen signs of them. And we were just like, no, and we saw that we went to one beach. There was like a set of tracks, just 2. But throughout that day, and this was the day that we were heading up to the northernmost part of the lake, each beach there was more and more tracks, to the point where it's not just one animal's passed through that we've missed. There's lots around here. Then we slept that night at the northern tip of the lake. The next morning, as we were leaving, within the first hour, I heard it and looked over, and just over the ridge, I was so in shock. I think I was like, what was that? And we were able to just pull up, and we ran up the ridge, and it wasn't too far, and looked around, and it had actually gone out onto a bit of a point. And then, so by the time we'd come up, we saw it, and it came back around, and it actually went right past us. For a second, we were like, oh, it came quite close, and just galloped past, and then we got to just watch it for, up to a minute or so, just one caribou. It just passed through, and we were ecstatic. We were so excited to see it. We were so excited to get more, often you just get that one glimpse and it's gone. And so to be able to be successful in kind of going out looking for it and then having it come back around, that felt, if that was our only experience on the trip with the caribou, it was incredible. And so we were just so excited. We were like, oh, that's great. What does this mean? And then it was the following day, we saw 3 in total, not together. We saw a mom and calf. And then later in the day, We were just hiking from where we were camping, and saw another one in the distance. So we're like, okay, that's not too bad. And then just in the following days, it increased to, we saw one day, I think like a herd of like 12, and that was so cool. Seeing the first buck with their antlers are huge. They're like almost comical. If you look closely, they're almost bigger than, because caribou aren't that big, and their antlers are just borderline silly. It was something else. So we had a couple experiences like that where we start, and you'll see one or two come over, and we're like, oh, and then they keep coming.
If you follow our social media channels, you might have seen that we recently had a solo Kevlar canoe get some repair, needed a little bit of attention, and we have the full fleet now back with the solos ready to get out for some fall paddling, late fall paddling. We also have a new canoe that we added to the fleet that we picked up at Stone Harbor Wilderness Supply in Grand Marais. It is a red gray duck canoe, beautiful canoe that we're very excited to have hit the water. And we got that in part from the discount sale that's happening, a major sale at Stone Harbor Wilderness Supply, because they're transitioning to new ownership this winter. We're going to be following that very closely and keeping you updated on the podcast and our website. But right now, like October this time into November, is the time to get down to Stone Harbor to get in on the discount that they have going from everything in the store, 20%, 40% off in some cases. And you need to get down because people have been hearing about that sale and getting down, but there's still a lot of merchandise to be moved at this huge sale at Stone Harbor Wilderness Supply right here in Grand Marais.
The day we saw the wolf, we saw some in a ridge in the distance, so we pulled over, parked the canoe, and got out and so we could film and get some good footage of it. And we're looking kind of off in the distance of this ridge, and then I look behind me, and right behind us, another herd started just flowing over the ridge. And we were like, oh, okay. And again, I don't know if they're not that aware of us, or in the numbers they're not that concerned, because they just came as close as we were comfortable, and we were like, okay, let's get back and kind of move to the canoe so that we can exit. And that, I would guess, would be like 30 to 50 animals in that herd. But to be watching some, and then just right behind you, they're flowing in, and then shortly after they wandered off, the wolf followed in behind. So that we thought was the caribou experience of the trip. And then I think it was the next night, both of us had said that day we'd seen a couple. It felt like it was slowing down, and we were like, that's okay. I think it was day 15 or 16. We were out there for 20, so we're like, this has been great. We had stopped early that day because we had to cross the mouth of a really big bay. We had to do like a 6-kilometer crossing. We want to be as safe as possible. So the wind had picked up, and we're like, okay, we'll stop early, try and tackle it in the morning, which again, kind of that like serendipitous thing of we were discouraged to have to stop early and not be able to make the crossing that we were hoping, and we're just feeling a little bit discouraged by that. So we stopped early, and we actually ended up we had a nap. We woke up and we were making dinner. We were having craft dinner that night. Same thing. We're just like, oh, there's one or two in the distance there. And I was like, oh, I wonder how many. Once they started flowing, it was 2 hours of constant flow of caribou. Like it was well over 1,000, but I can't even comprehend how many there were. And they came in and they were grazing. They came down and right to we're camped there. And that was the first time we've had that. The other experiences, we were out paddling for the day, which was great. But to have them just come through camp, we actually went to bed that night with, I don't know, maybe 24 of them settled in beside us, like just for the night. We saw them scratching the velvet on their antlers off, eating, drinking, just the whole, you just really felt like you were experiencing more than a glimpse of them passing by. It was just watching them flow through. It was incredible. We were against the water, and they were all around us, and it hadn't ceased yet, and we just went to bed with them still moving about. Very surreal. It was hard to comprehend. It was golden hour. There was a rainbow. It was just, yeah, it was surreal. And we were just looking at each other like we couldn't believe it. And it was so cool the way that the trip unfolded, because to get the experience where we were just enjoying and absorbing, you know, our first experience in the Barrens and the landscape, and then to kind of have them pick up like that is so, because each experience was so cool. It wasn't like, oh, we saw a whole herd and then like, oh yeah, there's a couple passing through on their own. We kind of got to experience excitement at each point. And then yeah, that night where they were just surrounding us, it was, I think surreal is the best way to put it. It was just so cool. Very cliche, but it felt like being in the middle of a Planet Earth documentary. It was incredible. It was a portal to this other world, and we've spent so much time and love Northwestern Ontario and this part of the world, and still do. And this trip was like, oh, there's also this. So it was kind of it feels like a transition into, I think, again, we're already planning for next year to go back and a little bit further north and do a river trip. And actually Brad and Patty, the couple we ran into, so they just mentioned, they're like, oh, the Dubont River, out of all of our trips, it was the most spectacular. They've all been amazing. We love the Barrens. We come back every year, but the Dubont was for some reason above and beyond. And we were like, all right, next year. So that we're planning for next year to go back up there, and they inspired that. So yeah, I think that's my takeaway was some desire and excitement to get back. It feels like just the beginning.
Thank you so much to Erin for sharing the story with us, with the podcast, her write-up for the website, and to her and Jon for the absolutely stunning photos you can find at paddleandportage.com of these incredible caribou, and the wolf, and the baby caribou, and the Barrens, and the landscape. It's just, her account is beautiful, and the photos will make your brain explode.
They did ours, certainly. Absolutely. And just being able to spend time with Erin here in Grand Marais. She came down and spent this day with us where we recorded this audio that you heard on the episode, and to get to walk around town and go down to the lighthouse and hang out by Lake Superior, get some lunch and eat fish from the lake and so forth. It's just an awesome time to collaborate and get to know each other better as colleagues, and learn more about their life in Canada and their next adventures.
Including Egg, the new kitten that is bringing tons of joy into their lives on a daily, moment-by-moment basis, of which we also get documentation of that is not available on the Paddle and Portage website at this time.
But what is available on there is Erin's entire article that she wrote for us at Paddle and Portage that is available now at the website, and we made it accessible to everybody. However, if you want to see the article in all its grandness, you'll need to subscribe to become a member to Paddle and Portage, and you can see it in the magazine. You actually put the magazine together and did an incredible job of putting the photos that Jon and Erin took from their trip into the spread, the layout, where it just has that extra polish to it, and all the photos that went with the trip. It's probably the most stunning thing that we've ever had in the magazine.
I grew up reading magazines in my hands, and I have a special spot for that way of taking in visual imagery, and the opportunity to lay out this issue that's out now, and it's incredible to see these photos in these full spread pages. I can't recommend it enough, and want to just remind you all that we love doing this podcast for you. We love that the Paddle and Portage platform is available for you to stay up to date on news of the wilderness and stories, and want to remind you that your subscription to Paddle and Portage really funds the work that we do, and we value it greatly. Thank you.
Right, exactly. And it also supports Erin's work and these stories that she shared with us on the podcast and in the magazine, we're able to support her work through your support of Paddle and Portage. So it's a circular thing that we can keep sharing these stories, all this information. That's what we're asking for your support and to become a member of Paddle and Portage. There's a lot of content that's available only to member subscribers. So check it out, paddleandportage.com.
Most of all, thanks again to our listeners, to our sponsors. Stick around for incredibly philosophical and existential discussion with Erin that wrapped up our time together.
Hi, my name is Rachel, and I work for Friends of the Boundary Waters as the Northern Education Coordinator. I'm here in Grand Marais today. I just got to spend the day working with Great Expectations students. We got to learn some portaging and team building skills, and we also got to learn about animal adaptations through looking at animal skulls and investigating which one's an omnivore and which one's a carnivore. We've got a lot of really incredible work and opportunities through a recent grant we got through the LCCMR, and if you'd like to learn more, please check out all our work with outdoor education on our website, and we hope to meet you all soon.
Kraft dinner is mac and cheese?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Same thing. Do you guys not have Kraft dinner?
Oh yeah, we have Kraft dinner.
Well,
It's like the name brand, I guess, of mac and cheese?
Or,
Of like cheap mac and cheese?
well, we call mac and Kraft is mac and cheese. I
Okay.
guess.
Yeah.
Like the blue box
Yeah.
with the yellow writing,
It's
KD?
called Kraft dinner in Canada.
Yeah, that's the like brand that makes it, I guess. So that's what we call it. But yeah, it's mac and cheese. It's like really basic mac and cheese.
Yeah, it's basic as it gets.
With like a
Powder.
chemical type powder for
Yeah.
the cheese.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really reminds me of like college,
Yeah.
coming home from the bar.
Yeah.
But
It's like frat food.
I guess in the States it's just called
Mac
and cheese.
Yeah.
I mean, as opposed to Kraft dinner.
For us to like mac and cheese, I feel like if I said mac and cheese, I'm thinking of more of a like homemade mac and cheese. That's actually like good and has some real cheese in it.
Yeah.
And then Kraft dinner is the like box.
Can I just say that you were talking about the most amazing, awe-inspiring, surreal, transcendental experience of caribou in migration, and Joe says, "Yeah, so Kraft dinner. Let's hear more about that."
Yeah, the cultural differences between